What's going on, Crimson Tide fans? Chris Daughtery back with you guys here on the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. It's homecoming weekend in Tuscaloosa, but that does not mean it's going to be an easy game for the Crimson Tide. Alabama number 4 taking on number 11 Oklahoma this weekend. Alabama a 6-point favorite in this ball game, a whole lot closer than it was going into last year's game. They were a 14.5-point favorite, I think it was, going into last year's game, and we all remember how that one turned out. It's going to be a very tough matchup for Alabama, especially going up against this Oklahoma defense, which right now in the country ranks number 7 in terms of their scoring defense. The offense for Oklahoma has kind of been up and down, hit or miss, especially with John Mateer being in and out of the lineup, so far this season. But, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I am very nervous for this one. I do think this could be one of the toughest matchups, if not the toughest test for Alabama so far this season. So if you want the Crimson Tide to beat Oklahoma this weekend, if you're watching on your phone right now, go down to where it says comments, scroll to the right, and hit that hype button to hype up the Crimson Tide against the Sooners this weekend. All right, so Oklahoma, so far this season, sitting at a 7-2 record. The only losses that they have right now are against Texas and Ole Miss. That game against Ole Miss, by the way, very, very fun back-and-forth type of matchup there. Coming off a bye week as well is Oklahoma, so back-to-back teams now where, you are going up against teams that are coming off the bye week here. It's going to be a really, really tough one because, like I mentioned just a second ago, this Oklahoma defense is very, very good. Number 7 overall in the country, giving up those total yards per games there. Their rushing defense is really, really good. 4th in the country, giving up only 2.5 yards per carry. And especially with Alabama right now, really, really struggling running the football, I think that could cause some trouble for this Crimson Tide team. The one thing that Oklahoma, this defense has really, the narrative around them right now, the lack of turnovers for them. Only 7 turnovers for Oklahoma so far this year. That's tied for 121st in the country. They have 5 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries, but, they're 3rd in sacks with 33 so far this year. They're 1st in tackles for loss with 97, and, their red zone touchdowns allowed actually pretty good as well. 7 out of 19 so far this season, only giving up touchdowns in the red zone. Just 19 times opponents have been in the red zone. That's a really good number in itself there. So just overall, this Alabama team really, really going to have a tough one against Oklahoma this weekend. And like I just said a second ago, this could be Alabama's toughest test yet this year. I get it, that Georgia game was a tough test going on the road there, but, I think this might be the most nervous that I've been for a game since that Georgia game. Alabama's offensive line just hasn't really played well at all this season, especially in the run game, but in pass protection as well. They've been kind of hit or miss there, and Ryan Grubb said in his press conference yesterday, it's not a mental thing right now with Alabama's offensive line. It is strictly physical, meaning that they're just flat out getting beat because the other guy is better. The other guy is quicker, whatever it might be there. Now, they have been able to hold on and win games because Ty Simpson has been playing at an absolutely elite level. He's been making some very, very high-level NFL-type throws. His ability to control the game at the line of scrimmage, the pre-snap reads, check into other plays. That's been really, really good for Ty Simpson. But, as I said in our video yesterday, it hasn't bitten them in the butt yet. But their inability to be able to run the football with any type of consistency is a problem. And if they can't get that fixed, there will be a game eventually where Ty Simpson is off. And, whenever that ends up happening, that inability to run the football could come back to hurt this Crimson Tide offense. So will Oklahoma be Alabama's biggest test so far this season? Let me know what you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. Type Y for yes or N for no. All right, so John Mateer so far this year, obviously played the first 4 games of the season, got hurt. He was out for, I believe it was that Kent State game, and then they had their bye week, so missed those 2 weeks there, but then was back for that Texas game. Overall, John Mateer really did start off hot, but if there's one thing about John Mateer that I think is kind of being overlooked a little bit so far this year, has kind of had an issue with turnovers. Does have 7 interceptions so far this season and only 8 passing touchdowns. But the thing about John Mateer is he can also run the football as well. He is actually leading this Oklahoma team right now in terms of rushing touchdowns for them. Torrey Blaylock's having a really good season as well, and Xavier Robinson, both of those guys, I always put that clip at, 4 yards per carry, I think is really, really solid, and Oklahoma is doing that right now. But, going up against this Alabama defense, they're pretty solid as well, and I think they're getting better and better as the weeks go on, especially, early in the season. We were kind of having issues, with the run game there. Past couple of games, they've actually done a pretty decent job of that. And Alabama's secondary as well is going to have another test for them, this weekend. The leading receivers you can see right here for Oklahoma. Like I said, they haven't actually, it's weird. Like the first couple of games of the season, we thought this Oklahoma team was going to have this insane passing attack, but, since John Mateer has come back from his injury, it's kind of, gone away from that a little bit. But, it's going to be a very, very tough matchup, both on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball for this Crimson Tide team. All right, it is starting to get a little bit chilly, no matter where you're at. If you're in Tuscaloosa, I'm sure it's getting pretty chilly there too. You guys can get a very, very good deal on this Alabama Full Zip just by going to chatsports.com/Bama Full Zip. It is on sale right now, $60 off. It was $130, only $70 right now. So, I know $70, sometimes could be a little bit expensive, but compared to $130, that's a really, really good deal on this right here. So go to chatsports.com/Bama Full Zip. I'll put that link down in the comment section and the description of today's show. There might even be a little clickable link over there in the corner if I can end up getting that to work as well. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll see if that works. But either way, it's going to be down in the comment section and the description of today's video. All right, a couple what to watch fors in this game this weekend. Just the line of scrimmage in general, both on the offense and on defense, but especially on offense for this Alabama team. This is a key for every single game versus any SEC opponent or top opponent around college football. But, if you guys remember back to the preseason, Pro Football Focus had Alabama's offensive line ranked number 1 in college football for 2 years in a row. And now for 2 years in a row, it really hasn't worked out that way. Alabama's offensive line has struggled at times, and Oklahoma's defensive front 7 has been very, very good this season. They were good last year too, but you could argue that they've been even better so far this season. And Brent Venables is a very, very good defensive coordinator, and he is definitely going to take advantage of that. I will make note as well, R. Mason Thomas had a scoop and score a couple of weeks ago and ended up kind of pulling his hammy on that play. So, Brent Venables was asked about both him and Kobe McKenzie. Said both of those guys are banged up. They're going to, evaluate them this week and see how that goes. So, Wednesday is going to be that first SEC availability report. So we'll see if those guys end up being on that to start the week here, kind of how that progresses. But, Oklahoma has 12 different players on defense with at least 4 tackles for loss. They have 8 guys with double-digit pressures so far this season. Alabama's offensive line has got to be able to get a push up front, and the running backs, going on that, have got to be able to find a hole and hit that hole when the offensive line, does open up some of those holes. But, they've also got to be able to protect Ty Simpson when Oklahoma only brings 4. That's where you've seen some struggles for Alabama in terms of the passing game when opposing teams can get pressure on Ty Simpson when they only bring 4. It's been a bit of an issue, and Oklahoma's going to bring some blitzes. They're going to bring some stunts in this game, and we'll see if the offensive line is going to be able to hold up. So what is your confidence level in Alabama's offensive line? Scale it for me 1 to 10 down in the comment section of today's show. I got to be honest, I'm kind of low right now. I'm about a 5, to be completely honest with you guys. So let me know your confidence level in Alabama's offensive line, 1 to 10 down in the comment section. All right, what to watch for number 2 is going to be the turnover battle. Alabama right now has the best turnover margin in the SEC. They're number 4 in the country at plus 10. The defense for Alabama has forced 8 fumbles, 8 interceptions. Ty Simpson right now is kind of, unfortunately, has a bit of a fumbling issue. He fumbled again versus LSU. That was his 4th of the season. And, there's nothing really to coach on that. He's just got to take care of the football better. He's done a good job when it comes to, not having turnovers, throwing interceptions, but you got to be able to hold on to the football too. And, one big key for Oklahoma, the lack of turnovers forced, has really been a point of emphasis for this Oklahoma team leading up to this game. They've only forced 7 so far this year. So Alabama's actually forced more fumbles and more interceptions just individually than Oklahoma has forced so far this season. They also have a -5 turnover differential on the season. So taking care of the football is always a key to victory. But when you are going up against a defense as good as Oklahoma's is, you cannot afford to give this team extra possessions. So make sure you guys come hang out with us for our Alabama versus Oklahoma watch party. We'll go live an hour before kickoff for our tailgate show. We'll do a bunch of build up for that. Also here for the month of November, going to be giving away a Ryan Williams jersey. So make sure you get in on that. And look, same thing as yesterday. If you guys are a victim of the YouTube TV versus Disney dispute right now, it's totally free right here on the Alabama Football Report. So make sure you guys hit that sub button and join us for our watch party. All right, the last what to watch for in this game, and I think this one's very, very underrated, but I do think it is notable here, is the special teams. Right now, you talk about the confidence level of Connor Talty. It's kind of, hit or miss at times. He's pretty good from 40, but, once it gets kind of outside that, it's kind of up in the air there for Connor Talty. And when you're talking about a, possible defensive battle that this game could end up being, your field goal kickers could end up being a big-time key in this game this weekend. And Tate Sandel, I believe is how you pronounce his name there. Maybe it's Sandell. So either way, it doesn't really matter. This kid is a freaking beast. He's only missed 1 field goal so far this year, and that was from that 40 to 49 range. But he's 6 for 6 from 50 plus. He is an absolute animal, and I would not be surprised if this game comes down to, who makes or misses their field goals in this game. By the way, against Tennessee, he was 3 for 3 from 50 plus, and they ended up winning that game by 6. So if this game comes down to the wire like that, field goals could be a very, very big key for this game this weekend. I'll be honest, Oklahoma does have the edge when it comes to field goal kickers. So I'll get to mine here in just a second, but predict the score to Alabama versus Oklahoma. Do the Crimson Tide cover? Is this going to be a close game? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Predict the score to Alabama versus Oklahoma in this SEC matchup this weekend. All right, so like I said, I think this is going to be a very, very close game. I think the defenses are both going to have really, really big games. We'll see. Maybe Alabama's defense can force a turnover or two to help themselves out in this one. I've got Alabama winning, but it's going to be 24-7. It's going to be a very close game. That would actually, with the 6-point spread, Alabama would actually cover on that. But, I think this game could come down to, whoever ends up having the ball last. Can the defense get a stop? And, we'll see what happens. But, of course, I'm biased here. I'm going to pick the Crimson Tide winning this one 24-17.